Welcome to Workplace Culture Store. This is third in a series of videos that will give you a glimpse into the philosophies and research that went into designing our virtual experiences and the approach we take to strategically shaping culture and engagement for our clients and partners. I'm your host, Creative Director of Workplace Culture Store, Michelle Rochon-Wood. This chapter is called Play Does for Adults Exactly What It Does for Children. It makes us better humans. My explorations began when I had two young sons, one of whom was later diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Reed had more than his share of emotions. Let me rephrase that. He had all the emotions you would expect in a little boy, but something enlarged how he experienced them. From the first moment, he began acting less like a little pooping blob and more like a person. He became what I call a feelings bomb about to go off. Anything he had to wait for or put up with would spark it and he would blow. Frustration and disappointment were the worst, it seemed. Any toy that presented a multi-step process that didn't flow smoothly the first time was an unfun display of furious 4th of July fireworks. Even the wrong combination of clothing and shoes made for an interesting morning. When it turned out later that Reed was on the spectrum, it all began to make a little more sense. He had been very high functioning, and professionals were unwilling to accept any firm diagnosis until he was older. Even spectrum was a little non-committal, vague enough to remain open to interpretation. In the meantime, back then, I had to develop parenting strategies. Reed had a way of playing that was wonderfully deliberate. Emotionally, he had a great deal more to manage than other children. His pendulum led him from meltdown to meltdown, setback to setback. He was like the ball in a game of Pong once the pace became unmanageably fast. Everywhere he went, his carefree instincts summoned against him new obstacles, new afflictions. Outbursts, awkward social encounters left him baffled and grieved. But he coped surprisingly well. He would retreat to his brand of restoration. He loved to stab a Play-Doh snowman to death with crayons or build a grand Lego structure for a villain that he fancied. He had peculiar compassion for the villains, the Darth Vaders and the Lord Farquaads of the movie world. If I led him to my little garden behind the house, he didn't make mud pies. He disrobed and flung himself into it, buck naked. He'd cover himself in a furry pelt of wet, black prairie mud, and then hurl fistfuls of it at the boards and on the fence until exhausted or jaded, whichever came first. For Reed, play was a mechanism for processing that nagging paddle ball on a string sensation. Naturally, a boy, being whacked by the limits of life, only to be pulled back and whacked again, would have to play with mitigating intensity. I observed both my sons playing, as well as their friends who were visiting at our house, which was a popular drop-in spot for the neighborhood. I soon confirmed that this phenomenon was apparent in all play among children. They would play as a way to process difficult emotions. If I hadn't seen it in such obvious ways in Reed, I might never have noticed it because it can be very subtle, like it was with Quinn, my younger son, who was a really serene kid in comparison. Children play naturally, and adults can provide little promptings along the way, such as ideas, answering questions, or redirecting from violence, inappropriate topics. But frankly, it's better if we stay out of it or play along as if we're another child in the group. From a survival perspective, it makes sense. The human child must be able to continue maturing even when parental guidance is absent. That way, healthy development can still happen when parents are aloof or by some miracle refraining from butting in. From an emotion processing perspective, it's a truly brilliant human adaptation. Children have no control over what happens to them from day to day. Other people decide their meals, activities, whereabouts, and children have no choice to accept what those people decide. The only thing children can control is play, and they control it in a way that helps them accept and process things they don't like, otherwise known as pain. At that time, I was also testing engagement exercises and techniques in the workplace. This was one of the more practical skills I was developing. I read the books of many thinkers on that subject, and in my consciousness, this and play suddenly combined. I began to wonder if adults experience the same benefits from play. I asked myself if adults felt pain about things they couldn't control, and of course, the answer was yes. Further, I wondered if they processed pain via something they could control, how they played. It was rare, but I found it in adults with a robust sense of humor. I watched them discover and follow a funny idea and build upon it, bring in ironies, laugh, particularly with a like-minded friend, sigh, and then return to the matter at hand. From what I saw, it was restorative. The body post-play was calm, and the player appeared to have experienced a surge of new energy, and if asked, reported as such. So after watching adults for a few years, I developed what you're seeing on the screen right now, and that is a 5-point hypothesis. 1, for both adults and children, play provides a kind of energy and nourishment to the brain. It does this by releasing feelings of frustration and anger, restoring feelings of hope and joy, engaging the mind and body in activities that provide unique satisfaction based on the preferences of the individual. And this includes creating, imagining new ideas and things, connecting with friends, building a sense of community, and expressing one's authentic and distinct self as a unique member of that community. Enabling a human to evolve through learning, discovery, mastery, one's chosen skill area, and to be productive in tasks. 2, once you have consciously observed a child playing and have identified the steps that I just listed, the playing adult is downright tragic to watch. Play can reliably restore the adult mind to a state of productive and joyful readiness, but the effect is ruined by a stubborn preference for pain punishment as a motivator. And you'll observe and confirm this phenomenon in adults while they're working and sadly engaging in leisure activities. 3, adults don't play often enough to realize the stress relieving benefits, and neither do they sustain that play. In fact, they drop the steps that appear miraculous in their restorative qualities in children. Most of the time, adults achieve a momentary release via an alcoholic beverage or a complaining tirade, and they immediately resume their punishing schedule of appointments, chores, errands, meetings. This might contribute to a constant state of misery and exhaustion. 4, if play provides energy to the brain, pain punishment drains it. Believing that pain punishment fuels us has us constantly running on empty. Our brains are forever starved for restorative play and punished for needing it. This leaves us emotionally depleted and defenseless. Depression, anxiety, stress-related illness are rampant, and this might be linked to the play deficit and pain punishment glut under which we all live. Finally, number 5, an adult does not have to pretend to be a child to play restoratively. This is known as infantilizing. He or she can simply give play its due. Let it happen, and while playing, don't think about work, don't feel guilty or punish yourself for enjoying that play, don't atone by later heaping on extra work, and recognize the value in that play activity, value for yourself and those around you. The 5-point hypothesis was proven correct. Proceed to the next video and learn how, and to participate in an exercise that I know will clarify things in your mind.